The unexpected guest. I love church and I also love work as a curative for what afflicts me. Hercules killed his wife and children after Hera inflicted temporary insanity on him. And Hercules, horrified and ashamed, purified himself by performing heroic labors such as killing the nine-headed Hydra and capturing Cerberus, the three-headed dog who guards the gates of Hades. And in this way he regained his health, and so may we, if we apply ourselves to the work we were put here to do. There maybe isn't a lot I can do, but do that much and more will present itself. When all is said and done, there is more to be done, and that goes without saying. A book goes through so much revision. If you knew how much, you might never start writing one. But luckily, you have no idea. I'm a writer who learned storytelling by necessity when I was 16 and necked with Corinne in a pile of leaves and came home late and met my mother at the door and invented a story about a drunken war hero and told it well enough to put her mind at ease, and she didn't call Corinne's parents and get her in trouble. The time in the leaves in the dark down the hill from where Corinne's parents sat watching TV was sacred to me then, and even more so now, and I protected it by inventing a cover. My awkward years were my 30s and 40s when I worked all the time and came home to angry women who felt I'd abandoned them, which was true enough. I liked work. It took my mind off my troubles, including the angry women. I wrote a weekly radio show based on the shows I loved as a kid that had all died out thanks to TV, and I gave speeches to various and sundry and wrote a couple dozen books and destroyed vast third-growth forests in northern Wisconsin. I inherited my work habits from my dad, who loved working on his car, changing the oil, spark plugs, fan belt, carburetor. The garage was his office. Other men came to visit him there, squatted around the car, or put their heads under the hood and opined about things, and the radio show was my garage. Women produced it: Margaret Moose, Christine Cheetah, Kate Gustafson. But I tinkered with it, which was fun. I don't know about plumbing or electricity or even replacing the ink cartridge in the printer. But now and then I walk out on a stage and I talk without notes for 90 minutes and people listen. Performance. The ultimate escapism. I went through decades of crazy ambition in my working years: shows, orchestra concerts, readings, book tours, much too much of a good thing, and I was crisscrossing time zones and going from EST to PST to do a show in LA and lie awake at 1 and 2 with a plane to catch at 7 so I could make it to a benefit in New York for rich people who wished to help poor people without meeting them, and I couldn't sleep on planes, and I amused myself by writing limericks for friends. A girl who loves radio, Phoebe, has AM and FM and CB, and plays them proudly, constantly, loudly at about 55 dB. And when she was caught, she fired a shot at the cops with her personal BB. And when she turned deaf, she shouted the F word that's not found in Mr. White, EB. But the flame of ambition burns lower as you get old. The show-off urge fades. I found that I was describing a world the audience was no longer familiar with. My riff on the fear of putting your tongue on a pump handle in winter because your tongue would freeze to it and might need to be cut off, it got no reaction because there's not much future in nostalgia. What people want is action and or sex. Moby Dick would have sold better if he'd placed a couple female stowaways aboard the Pequod and they'd shoved the peg leg up Ahab's ass. People want the same as what Shakespeare's audience wanted: dastardly deeds by dark, despicable men, a sword fight or two, and saucy wenches with pert breasts cinched up to display them like fresh fruit on a platter. I don't offer those goods. Maybe you should, said the reader. She stood up from under the kitchen table and closed the lid of my laptop. Frankly, there's not a whole lot going on in this book. It strikes me as sort of languid. I hate languidity. Or luminosity. Her face was luminous in the moonlight. The sunflowers were almost incandescent. Her eyes shone as she lit the candles, that sort of thing. She came around the table and stood over me. Literature is about a hell of a lot more than lighting, she said. This isn't a display window at Tiffany's. This is life. Get with the program. I didn't want to point it out to her, but she had aged a great deal in just a couple hundred pages. She was in her late 20s before, and now she looked to be around 78. 68, she said. I taught 8th grade English for 35 fucking years. Please don't talk like that in my book, I said. Well, if you'd taught 8th grade as long as I did, you'd talk like that too. While you were standing in front of admiring crowds, I was trying to beat simple basic grammar into the brains of children who despised me. What you earned weekly was my annual salary. Fine, good for you, but I'll talk any damn way I want to. Anyway, what do you have against action? Other than the kids in Chapter 1 jumping around and dancing, there hasn't been much. Life is more than a mood, more than atmosphere. And writing that isn't about life is dead. It's as simple as that. She put a hand on my shoulder. I don't mean to matronize you, but a book about cheerfulness? My God, look at Afghanistan. Ukraine, look at China, the crazies in Congress, the racism that refuses to go away, the migrant children working in the Minnesota slaughterhouses. Eviscerating turkeys, the ruling class that calls the tune, the plastic we dump in the ocean, people in Congress calling for secession. The world is falling apart. What the hell are you thinking? I told her to go back and read the part about avoiding dread, that despair is defeat, that one should do what one can and do it cheerfully, but not sit and soak in the world's troubles. There are people running around with guns in this country, and every day somebody goes berserk and shoots up a ballroom, a school, a crowd at a parade, and we read it as we get out the chips and guacamole. I had been so surprised by her popping up out of nowhere that I hadn't noticed her outfit, a black silk evening gown, low cut with a double-barreled Derringer stuck in her bosom. I came in to create some excitement, she said. She reached for the Derringer. I'm not putting that in my book, I said. It's in your book, she whispered. Sex and violence. Give the dry goods clerks a thrill. Turn this little meditation into a murder mystery. She cocked the hammer of the Derringer. Pretend I pull the trigger, Mr. Author is cut down in the middle of a book about cheerfulness. The New York PD will be looking for a retired lady English teacher, but guess what? She pulled the dress down. Hair on the chest and a skull and bones tattoo. A Yale man. He stuck out his hand. How you doing? I'm Billy Bush. Not the Bushes in Texas. The beer Bushes in St. Louis. That's spelt B-U-S-C-H, I said. You're not the author anymore, he said. That's the twist in the book, which, by the way, is titled not Cheerfulness, but Mr. Two Shoes Hits the Home Stretch. The prose style changes the moment you're shot, and the detectives who find your body with a big hole where the pig valve used to be realize that the perp is now the narrator, and we're done with Emerson and American optimism, and we're in a jet plane on the way to New York to knock off Russian oligarchs, and from their cell phones, I track down Putin's hideaway at a cyber spa in Siberia, and put him to rest and head for a golf course in Crimea, where I cornered DJ Trump hiding under the name Dmitry Tiomkin, and he confesses his crimes and is led away by U.S. Marshals, who sneak him through the battalion of Ruskies guarding him, and I shave his hair off with the little ducktail squiggles, and I dress him in coveralls, and I give him a drug that makes him speak Spanish, and that's where the cheerfulness starts. Nifty idea, don't you think? I liked you better as a woman, I said, much better. He laughed. This is 2023, Gramps. It ain't 1951. Gender is a mystery, a puzzle to be worked out. This isn't geology. We're talking about the human heart. Not in this book, I said. I pressed Control and F, and he was gone, and the teacher returned, looking slightly dazed. Thanks for the visit, I said. And now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to finish this book. And I hit delete, and she disappeared. I just want my message to get through to you. A person can slip into despair as easily as you trip on a curb and land flat on your face and break your nose. It happens on a daily basis to somebody in your gene pool. And you need to get up and go on your way, grateful you didn't break your neck, and cheerfully do what God put you here to do, and not soak in gloom about the enormity of the darkness, but, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, brighten the corner where you are. I know it sounds old school, but it works, and anyway, I'm 80. Once I fell, could hardly walk, took a cab to Mount Sinai, St. Luke's on 114th, where the ER was crowded with people in worse shape than I. 3 hours later, I was x-rayed, and a doctor told me nothing was broken. I was okay to go. She was so kind, I asked her to pronounce her last name, and I sat and wrote, the ER doc, Elise Levine, is dealing with chaos just fiend. Your calm expertise and kindness, Elise, bring the Upper West Side some sunshine in the shadow of St. John Divine. She was touched. I thanked her and took a cab home. A simple transaction.